The courtroom doors slammed open. Gasps rippled through the room as a young woman strode inside, her heels striking the marble floor with sharp determination. Every head turned. Reporters leaned forward. Lawyers exchanged confused looks. At the center of the courtroom sat one of the most powerful men in the country, billionaire Daniel Whitmore. His hands rested calmly on the table in front of him, but his eyes widened the moment he saw her. "Lily?" he whispered. The young woman stopped a few feet away from him. Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something deeper: anger, betrayal, pain. The judge cleared his throat. "Miss Lily Whitmore, are you certain you want to proceed with this case?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor." Daniel's voice cracked slightly. "Lily, what is this?" She turned to face him fully. Her words were quiet, but they struck like thunder. "You stole my life." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Daniel stared at her as if the world had suddenly tilted beneath him. 18 years earlier, she had been a starving child on the streets, and he had saved her, or so he believed. 18 years earlier, rain poured heavily across the city. Cars rushed past glowing streetlights, while most people hurried home. Daniel Whitmore stepped out of the back seat of his black luxury car, adjusting his coat as he left a charity gala. His driver spoke quickly. "Sir, the car is ready." Daniel nodded, but something caught his attention. Across the street, beside an overflowing dumpster, a small figure moved in the shadows. At first, he thought it was a stray animal. Then he saw the tiny hands digging through a bag of garbage. He frowned. "Wait." The driver paused. Daniel crossed the street slowly. As he got closer, he saw her clearly. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, soaked from the rain, her clothes torn, her face thin with hunger. She froze when she noticed him. Her eyes were wild, like a frightened animal. Daniel crouched slightly. "Hey," he said gently. She said nothing. He pointed toward the trash bag she had been searching. "Looking for food?" She stepped back quickly. "I'm not stealing," she snapped. Her voice was small but defensive. Daniel blinked, surprised. "I didn't say you were." She looked at him suspiciously. People always say that first. Daniel studied her for a moment. The rain soaked both of them now, but neither moved. "What's your name?" he asked. Silence. Then, finally, "Lily." He nodded slowly. "Well, Lily, when was the last time you ate?" Her eyes shifted away. "That's none of your business." Daniel reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a wrapped sandwich from the event. He held it out. "Here." She stared at it like it might disappear. "Why?" "Because you're hungry." She hesitated, then grabbed it quickly and stepped back again. She tore into the sandwich like someone who hadn't eaten in days. Daniel watched quietly. "Where are your parents?" he asked softly. Her chewing slowed. "They're gone." "Gone where?" Her voice dropped. "Dead." Daniel felt something tightened in his chest. "How long have you been out here?" She shrugged. "A while." "Do you have any relatives?" "No." He exhaled slowly. His driver called from the car. "Sir, we should leave. It's getting late." He ignored him. He looked back at Lily. "Where do you sleep?" She pointed toward a dark alley. "Back there." The rain continued pouring. Daniel stood silently for several seconds. Then he said something that would change both of their lives forever. "Come with me." Her eyes narrowed immediately. "No." "It's warm. There's food." "No." "Why not?" She stepped back further. "Because adults lie." Daniel blinked. "Not all of them." "Yes, they do." "Lily." "I'm not stupid," she said quickly. "You'll take me somewhere and make me work or something." Daniel's heart sank. "Who told you that?" "No one. I just know." He thought carefully for a moment. Then he slowly removed his expensive watch and placed it on the wet pavement. Lily stared. "What are you doing?" "If I wanted to hurt you, would I leave something this expensive here?" She didn't answer. "Come to dinner with me," he said gently. "If you don't like it, you can leave." She studied his face. "You promise?" "I promise." She hesitated a long time. Then, slowly, she nodded. Dinner turned into a warm shower. The warm shower turned into a clean bed, and the clean bed turned into something Daniel never expected: a family. The next morning, Lily woke up in a massive bedroom. Soft blankets, sunlight pouring through large windows. She sat up quickly. "Hello?" she called nervously. Moments later, the door opened. Daniel stepped inside, holding a tray of pancakes. "Good morning." She stared at him. "Where am I?" "My house." "This is your house?" "Yes." She looked around again. "This is bigger than the whole street I lived on." Daniel chuckled softly. "Well, it is a little big." She looked down at the pancakes. "Are those for me?" "Yes." She grabbed one and took a huge bite. Daniel watched quietly. "So, Lily, what do you want to do now?" She shrugged. "I guess I'll leave." Daniel paused. "Why?" "Because people get tired of me." "That's not true. It always happens." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "What if it didn't happen this time?" She frowned. "What do you mean?" "What if you stayed?" "Stayed where?" "Here." Her eyes widened. "Why?" "Because every child deserves a home." She immediately shook her head. "No." "No? No." "Why not?" Her voice grew quiet. "Because homes disappear." Daniel felt the weight of those words. Then he said something carefully. "What if this one didn't?" She studied him again. "You're serious?" "Yes." "But I'm just a street girl." Daniel smiled slightly. "And I'm just a lonely old man." She laughed a little. "You're not old." "Thank you." She stared at the pancakes again. Then she asked softly, "You won't send me away?" "No." "You won't make me work?" "No." "You won't lie?" He met her eyes. "No." She took a deep breath, then quietly said, "Okay." That single word changed everything. If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Stories like this only get better as they unfold, and what happens next will completely change Lily's life. Within months, Lily's life transformed. Daniel enrolled her in one of the best private schools in the city. The first day she wore a clean uniform, she stood nervously beside Daniel's car. "Do I really have to go in there?" "Yes." "They'll know I don't belong." Daniel crouched beside her. "Lily, you belong anywhere you decide to stand." She stared at the huge school gates. "What if they laugh at me?" "Then they're fools." She took a deep breath. "Okay." School was difficult at first. Some students whispered, "Isn't she the street kid?" "Yeah, the billionaire adopted her." One girl sneered one afternoon. "So tell us, Lily, did you learn table manners in the trash?" Lily's fists clenched. Before she could respond, a voice interrupted. "That's enough." Daniel stood at the doorway of the classroom. The room fell silent. He walked slowly toward the girl. "Bullying someone for their past only reveals your future character." The girl turned red. I'm sorry." Daniel looked at Lily. "Ready to go home?" She nodded quietly. Later that night, she sat across from him at dinner. "Why did you come to my school today?" she asked. He smiled. "Because I'm your father." She froze. "You are?" He nodded. "If you want me to be." Her eyes filled with tears. Then she whispered the word she had never said before. "Dad." Daniel turned away slightly, hiding his emotion, and in that moment, he believed something beautiful had finally begun. But 18 years later, that same girl would stand in court, accusing him of destroying her life.
and the truth behind it would shock everyone.
The years passed faster than either of them expected. Lily grew into a confident, intelligent young woman. The fragile street child who once searched for food in garbage bins slowly disappeared, replaced by someone determined to prove she deserved the life she had been given. At 16, she walked into Daniel's office one afternoon holding a stack of exam papers. "Guess what?" she said, trying to sound calm even though her excitement was obvious. Daniel looked up from his laptop. "Judging by that smile, I'm about to hear very good news." She dropped the papers on his desk. "Top of my class." Daniel adjusted his glasses and looked through them carefully. Mathematics, 98. Economics, 96. Literature, 97. He looked back at her. "Well," he said slowly, "I suppose I should start worrying." She frowned. "About what?" "About you taking my job." She laughed. "That's the plan." He leaned back in his chair, studying her proudly. "You know, Lily, when I first met you, I just wanted to make sure you were safe." She folded her arms. "And now?" "Now, I think you might end up running this entire company better than I ever did." Her eyes widened slightly. "You mean that?" "Every word." She walked around the desk and hugged him tightly. "You're stuck with me forever, Dad." He smiled. "I wouldn't have it any other way." For years, their life felt almost perfect. They traveled together, they celebrated birthdays, they argued sometimes, but always made up. And Lily slowly began preparing to inherit the Whitmore business empire. But everything changed the night she turned 18. The party had ended hours earlier. Guests had gone home, music had faded, and the massive Whitmore mansion had fallen quiet. Lily walked down the hallway barefoot, still holding a glass of juice. "Dad?" she called. No answer. She reached his office door and knocked lightly. "Dad?" Still nothing. The door was slightly open. She stepped inside. Daniel wasn't there. She was about to leave when something caught her attention on the desk. A folder. It had her name written on the label. Lily Whitmore, adoption file. She froze. Her heart began to beat faster. "Why would Dad keep this here?" she murmured. Curiosity slowly overcame hesitation. She opened the folder. Inside were documents she had never seen before. Her birth certificate, police reports, old newspaper clippings. Her eyes scanned quickly. Then she saw two names, Michael Carter, Sarah Carter, her real parents. Her breathing slowed as she read further. A headline in one of the clippings caught her attention. "Corporate whistleblower dies in a tragic accident." Her eyes narrowed. She read the article quickly. Michael Carter had worked as an accountant for Whitmore Industries 18 years ago. He had reportedly discovered corruption within the company. A few weeks later, he and his wife died in a mysterious car accident. Lily's hands began to shake. "No," she whispered. She flipped through the documents faster. Another report, another article, another mention of Whitmore Industries. Her chest tightened. Daniel Whitmore's company, her father's company. Her mind raced. Why didn't he tell me this? She sat down slowly in the chair. The pieces began connecting in her mind in a way that made her stomach twist. Her father exposed corruption, then he died, and the billionaire who owned that company adopted his daughter. Her voice trembled. Did he do this out of guilt? The thought grew darker. What if he was involved? Her hands trembled as she closed the file. No, Dad wouldn't. But doubt had already taken root. The next morning, she sat quietly at breakfast. Daniel noticed immediately. "You're quiet today," he said. She forced a smile. "Just tired. You partied pretty hard last night." She nodded slowly. "Yeah." He took a sip of coffee. "So, any big plans now that you're officially an adult?" Her fingers tightened slightly around her fork. "Actually, I have a question." Daniel looked up. "Ask anything." She hesitated, then spoke carefully. "My real parents, how did they die?" Daniel's expression shifted slightly. The pause lasted only a second, but Lily noticed. "It was a car accident," he said calmly. "Were they connected to your company?" Daniel set down his coffee cup. "Why are you asking this?" She held his gaze. "Just curious." He studied her for a moment. "Yes," he said finally. "Your father worked for me many years ago." "What kind of work?" "Accounting." Her heart pounded harder. "Did he ever report corruption?" Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. "Where did you hear that?" She shrugged. "I read something online." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Your father was a good man." "That's not what I asked." Silence filled the room. "Yes," Daniel said eventually. "He exposed some dishonest executives." She swallowed. "And then he died." "Yes." Another silence followed. "Do you think that was coincidence?" she asked quietly. Daniel looked at her carefully. "Lily, just answer me." "I don't know." Her voice grew colder. "You never investigated?" "Of course I did." "And?" "The evidence showed it was an accident." She stared at him. "But you're not sure." "Lily, just obey me. You adopted me a few months later." "Yes." "Why?" "Because you were alone." Her voice sharpened. "Or because you felt guilty." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "Guilty about what?" She pushed her chair back slowly. "About what happened to my parents." The words hung in the air like a storm about to break. Daniel stood up. "Lily, listen to me." But she was already walking away. "Lily!" She stopped at the doorway but didn't turn around. "Tell me the truth." "I already have." Her voice trembled. "I'm not sure I believe that anymore." She left the room before he could respond. Over the next few weeks, Lily became distant. She stopped joining him for dinner. She stopped visiting his office. Instead, she began digging deeper into the past. Old company records, archived news reports, legal documents. The more she searched, the more questions she found. One evening, she sat in a small office across from a private investigator. "Miss Whitmore," said the man carefully, "some of the things you're asking about are sensitive. I'll pay whatever it costs." "That's not the issue." "Then what is?" He leaned forward. "Are you sure you want to know the truth about your father's death?" Her eyes hardened. "Yes." 3 weeks later, the investigator returned with a thick file. Lily opened it slowly. "What did you find?" The man exhaled. "Your father discovered a major financial fraud inside Whitmore Industries." Her stomach tightened. "Who was involved?" "Several executives." "And Daniel Whitmore?" The investigator hesitated. "He wasn't listed as part of the fraud, but he was the CEO at the time." Her voice dropped. "So the corruption happened under his watch?" "Yes." Her chest tightened further. "And the accident?" "Still classified as accidental." "But you don't believe that." The investigator didn't answer immediately. "Let's just say powerful companies sometimes bury uncomfortable truths." That was enough. Anger began burning inside her chest. The man she called father, the man she trusted, may have been responsible for destroying her real family. A week later, the entire country woke up to a shocking headline. Billionaire Daniel Whitmore sued by his own adopted daughter. Reporters swarmed the courthouse. News channels exploded with speculation. And Daniel sat silently in his office, holding the lawsuit papers in his shaking hands. When his lawyer finished explaining, Daniel looked up slowly. "You're telling me Lily filed this?" "Yes." "For wrongful death?" "Yes." Daniel's voice broke slightly. "She thinks I killed her parents?" His lawyer nodded quietly. Outside the building, reporters surrounded Lily. "Miss Whitmore, why are you suing your father?" She looked straight into the cameras. "Because the truth has been buried for 18 years. "And what truth is that?" Her voice turned cold. "The truth about how my parents really died." The story was no longer about a billionaire and his adopted daughter. It had become a national scandal. And it would all lead back to the moment when Lily walked into that courtroom and accused the man she raised of stealing her life. But the truth about what really happened 18 years ago was even more shocking, and Daniel Whitmore was finally ready to reveal it.
The courtroom buzzed with tension as reporters whispered and cameras flashed.
The case had already become the biggest news story in the country. A billionaire accused by the very daughter he had raised. People didn't know whether to call it betrayal, revenge, or tragedy. Daniel Whitmore sat quietly at the defense table. He looked older than he had just weeks earlier. The confident businessman who once controlled billion-dollar deals now looked like a man carrying something far heavier than money. Across the room, Lily stood beside her lawyer. She didn't look at him. Not once. The judge entered the room and everyone rose. "Be seated." The room settled into silence. The judge looked down at the documents before him. Miss Lily Whitmore has filed a civil suit claiming Daniel Whitmore was responsible for events that led to the death of her biological parents 18 years ago. Today we will hear testimony regarding those claims. He turned toward Lily. "Miss Whitmore, do you wish to speak?" Her lawyer nodded to her. Lily stood slowly. Every camera turned toward her. Her voice was steady, but emotion hid just beneath the surface. "For 18 years," she began, "I believed Daniel Whitmore saved my life." Daniel lowered his eyes. "I believed he adopted me because he cared about me," she continued. "But recently I discovered something he never told me." She lifted a document. "My father, Michael Carter, worked for Whitmore Industries before he died." Murmurs spread through the courtroom. "He exposed corruption inside that company," Lily said. Her voice grew stronger. "Just weeks later, my parents died in a so-called accident." She turned toward Daniel for the first time. "Then the CEO of that company adopted their daughter." Daniel finally met her eyes. Pain flashed across his face. "Tell me," she said, her voice trembling, "does that sound like coincidence?" The courtroom erupted with whispers. The judge raised his hand. "Order." Lily continued. "For years I trusted this man. I called him Dad. I defended him. I believed he was the reason my life changed." Her voice cracked. "But now I believe the truth is something much darker." She sat down slowly. Silence filled the room. The judge turned toward Daniel. "Mr. Whitmore, do you wish to respond?" Daniel stood. For a moment he said nothing. Then he spoke quietly. "Yes." He walked slowly toward the center of the courtroom. His voice was calm but heavy with emotion. "Everything Lily said about her father is true." The room stirred. "Michael Carter worked for my company. He was one of the most honest men I ever met." Lily crossed her arms. "Then why didn't you tell me?" Daniel looked directly at her. "Because I was trying to protect you." Her voice sharpened immediately. "Protect me from the truth? Protect you from the pain. That's not your decision to make." Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right." He took a deep breath. 18 years ago, my company was on the verge of collapse." The courtroom leaned forward. Several high-ranking executives were stealing millions of dollars. Gasps spread through the room. "Michael Carter discovered the fraud. He brought the evidence directly to me." Lily's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to believe that?" Daniel continued. "He risked his career and his life to expose those men." "Then why did he die?" she demanded. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Because those men realized he had reported them." The courtroom fell completely silent. "They arranged the accident," Daniel said. Lily stared at him. "No," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Yes." Her lawyer quickly stood. "Your Honor, is there evidence to support this claim?" Daniel's lawyer stepped forward immediately and handed several documents to the judge. "These are sealed investigation reports from 18 years ago." The judge scanned them carefully. Then his eyes widened slightly. He looked up. "These documents indicate that multiple executives at Whitmore Industries were investigated for financial fraud." Daniel spoke again. "Michael Carter helped expose them." Lily shook her head slowly. "But my parents still died." Yes. And you couldn't stop it? Daniel's voice broke slightly. No, I couldn't. The courtroom remained silent. After their deaths, Daniel continued, I searched for their daughter. Lily looked confused. What? You. Her breathing slowed. So you adopted me? Yes. Out of guilt? No. Then why? His voice softened. Because your father saved my company. He looked directly at her. He saved my life. Lily's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. I owed him everything. Her voice trembled. So you raised his daughter? Yes. The room was silent again. But I didn't do it because I owed him, Daniel added quietly. Lily's head lifted slightly. Then why? His voice softened again. I did it because the moment I saw you digging through that garbage in the rain, I realized something. Her voice was barely audible. What? That no child should suffer because adults failed them. Tears slipped down Lily's cheeks now. But why hide the truth? Daniel exhaled slowly. Because the people responsible were powerful. Even after prison, they still had allies. So you lied to me? Yes. Her voice broke. For 18 years? Yes. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Whitmore, according to these documents, the executives responsible for the fraud were eventually convicted. Daniel nodded. Yes, but the investigation into the accident remained inconclusive. That's correct. At that moment, the courtroom doors opened. Everyone turned. A man walked in quickly, holding another folder. Daniel's lawyer rushed to meet him. The two spoke briefly before approaching the judge. Your Honor, new evidence has just been submitted. The judge frowned. What kind of evidence? Testimony from a former employee of Whitmore Industries. The judge looked surprised. Regarding what? The accident that killed Michael Carter. The room held its breath. The judge flipped through the documents. Then his eyes widened slightly. He looked up. These documents indicate that a former employee at Whitmore Industries claimed the accident was not accidental. Gasps exploded across the courtroom. Lily's heart pounded. Who did it? Asked Lily. The judge adjusted his glasses. The report names 2 former executives, both of whom served prison sentences for financial fraud. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. They admitted it? The judge nodded. In exchange for reduced sentences, they have now confessed to arranging the crash. The courtroom erupted. Lily felt the room spinning around her. Her parents hadn't died because of Daniel. They died because of criminals inside the company. And the man she had just accused had actually been the one trying to stop them. Her legs felt weak. She turned slowly toward Daniel. He wasn't looking at her. He simply stood there quietly, like a man who had already accepted whatever judgment she might give. Her voice trembled. Dad? He looked up. That single word carried 18 years of memories. She walked slowly toward him. I thought you destroyed my family. Daniel's voice was gentle. I understand why you believed that. Tears streamed down her face. I sued you. I humiliated you. I told the world you killed my parents. Daniel gave a small, sad smile. You were searching for the truth. She shook her head. I hurt you. He stepped closer. Yes. The honesty made her cry harder. I'm so sorry, she whispered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel said something softly. You were never my mistake, Lily. She looked up. You were my second chance. She threw her arms around him and cried into his shoulder. The courtroom watched in silence as the billionaire and the girl he had rescued from the streets embraced like father and daughter again. The judge cleared his throat gently. In light of the new evidence, this court will dismiss the claims against Daniel Whitmore. Reporters rushed out of the room to break the news, but inside the courtroom something far more important had already happened. A broken family had begun to heal. Later that evening, Lily and Daniel stood outside the courthouse together. The sun was beginning to set.
Lily looked down at the steps where reporters had gathered earlier. "I almost destroyed everything," she said quietly. Daniel shook his head. "No." "What do you mean?" "You fought for your parents." She looked at him. "That's something they would have been proud of." Her voice softened. "Do you really forgive me?" Daniel smiled. "I forgave you the moment you walked into that courtroom." She laughed weakly. "You're too kind." He shrugged. "I had a good teacher." "Who?" "You." She stared at him. "The little girl who survived the streets taught me more about strength than any business school ever could have." She hugged him again, and for the first time since discovering the truth about her past, the weight in her heart finally began to lift.